This is part one of a recap that I have for book one on a lot of questions that I didn't include in the series, mostly session 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to cover those questions. Let's begin. When I initially started this series on the Law of One, I didn't think I was going to cover the whole material, or at least not the vast majority that makes sense for the content that makes up the narrative that Don wanted to make in the books. So I was just picking a couple of questions that kind of highlighted what the sessions were, but after session 5, I started covering mostly everything and just excluding those things that I still consider are not that important. I've mentioned this in previous videos, things like personal stuff or things that just didn't match the sessions, and I always make note of that when I skip questions. But these, as I review my old videos when I started making the first sessions, I realized that there is pretty cool content that is there that I excluded just because to me it didn't make sense. And interestingly, Don wanted to exclude certain stuff which is all in different versions of the Law of One to make his books. So I'm kind of doing that honor again and just adding those questions that I didn't put in. So we're going to start actually with session 1 and the introduction of Ra as they started communicating with the group of L&L research. And well, without further ado, we're going to get, as usual, into our format. And we're going to start reading. Again, this is Ra communicating for the first time, and they say, "I am Ra. I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned, as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in the love and in the light of our infinite Creator. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group. For you have a need for the diversity of experiences in channeling which go with a more intensive, or as you might call it, advanced approach to the system of studying the patterns of the illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeking the truth. We hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information which is always and ever the same." We're going to see something as I move along in this video, especially starting session 2, actually, not especially. But we can see already that, of course, Ra, communicating for the first time, they had to come with a discourse explaining who they were and what they were trying to do. And this is exactly what they were doing in this first I wouldn't say question, but it was their introduction to it. We can already see a couple of things that are very, very important and significant in the communication of Ra with the L&L research group when they say, first of all, that they had to wait until the channel was precisely tuned, or the instrument, in fact. And there's a beautiful analogy when they talk about instruments. Some people might see it as they were using it as a tool or something, an instrument. But to be fair, and with all the analogies that we use in the creation, with frequencies, vibration, energy, etc., instrument refers more as a musical instrument because they were actually playing the instrument. They were playing with Carla's vocal cords, if you will. So it's an instrument that makes music, in a sense. So that's the first thing they said, that it was precisely tuned, and this has to do, obviously, with Carla's consciousness and desire to serve others. So they, as they usually introduce themselves, "We greet you in the love and the light of our infinite Creator." They have watched their group, and they have seen that they needed a more intelligent approach to the seeking of truth, like they were looking for in this channeling. So because they were channeling for already a long time, probably a decade at this point, they decided to give this information in a different way than the other Confederation entities had. And this is what's characteristic of the raw material. They also say that they mentioned the illusions, or as a part of the illusion, they said the advanced approach to the system of studying the patterns of the illusions of our body, mind, and spirit, which we call seeking the truth. These are patterns of the illusion that we live in, and there's a specific density that at this point we already know. At least we have a good idea of what they're referring when they talk about this illusion as it is. So the last piece of information that I think it's important to highlight here is that they say that we hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information, which is always and ever the same, because the information that they're giving us is not something new. It's just that it's transmitted in a different way. You can liken this to how we always say that sacred texts, spiritual beliefs, prophets, messiahs, whichever, they all through history try to communicate the same philosophy. Ra were doing the same thing. They were transmitting the same philosophy. But as you go up in time and intelligence becomes more enhanced, so to speak, we are kind of more receptive to a more comprehensive way of understanding the universe, the creation. So they are offering this law of one material in a way that we can understand it to the fullest of our capacity. And even in 1981, it was only a few people who could understand this material. And this is probably, in my opinion, why this wasn't, and it wasn't the intent anyways, but it wasn't disseminated so wide. So this is cool to know, because they're saying, from the get-go, that they're offering information that is always and ever the same. So let's go to the next question, or actually the next part. This is actually a long answer, where they say, the confederation of planets in the service of the infinite creator has only one important statement. That statement, my friend, as you know, is all things, all of life, all of the creation is part of one original thought. We will exercise each channel if we're able to. The reception of our beam is somewhat more advanced feat than some of the more broad vibration channels opened by other members for more introductory and intermediate work. Gives us a little bit more information. First, talking about the Confederation of Planets, which is the group of social memory complexes that are in service of the one infinite creator, service to others. We know the Confederation of Planets, of course, at this point, or at least we have a pretty good background on them. And they're saying that all things, this is just a statement of what the creation is. All things, everything is one, one is all. And this is, again, part of the original thought. This is not very helpful for us here, aside from the philosophical understanding that everything is one, and it can help us create a better community with the Earth, in our case, or planet, or society in general. So it's kind of like a trademark for them, obviously, to talk about this stuff, because it's where they're coming from, and they definitely denote it on the first way they communicated. So they also say that they're going to try and exercise each channel, and I included all this stuff just to read it, so you get the idea or the environment that it was going on their first attempt to communicate through the LNL research group. And they also say that their beam is somewhat more advanced than other members, and I believe it has to do with the type of communication that they wanted to transmit, as well as the density or the place in consciousness where they were, where trying to communicate is even harder, really, really difficult for us who are at a very dense density of consciousness or reality, so to speak. So that's why they mentioned that their communication, and you can see that how precarious sometimes the communication was, because of several factors that affect this. I think they couldn't have even cameras where they would record or something, because even that would cause an interference. This is something that they said in further sessions down the line, but they said, I think when they wanted to take pictures, they said don't take pictures, don't record anything, because that would, aside from the recording of the audio, and I think that was permissible, but yeah, it's a very delicate type of transmission. And you can see also that Carla was in deep trance for this communication, and that also talks a lot about the delicacy of this. So let's go on. They continue and say, let us for a moment consider thoughts. What is it, my friends, to take thought? Took you then thought today? What thoughts did you think today? What thoughts were part of the original thought today? In how many of your thoughts did the creation abide? Was love contained, and was service freely given? Again, in their first communication, their first, I would say, discourse, when they're trying to give this information, they're dropping heavy philosophical ideas or concepts here when they're talking about thought. Now, thought, we know that is the essence of this reality, of everything. In fact, thought is what really makes us humans, if you think about it. Think about it. We are a manifestation of thoughts. We are a manifestation of the mind. So when they make us ponder on thought, then it's not only on our reality and our manifestation here, but the source of thought, the source of the intelligence that makes us have thoughts. And there is obviously a fractal portion of us within this creation from the creator, which is a thought. And they'll talk about more, in the next slide, I believe. And it's the one point that I wanted to emphasize is how they talk already about the philosophical idea of thought being us, and what part of those thoughts that we're having are aligned with the original thought, which is the creator's thought. So they're already giving us, this framework, so to speak, to make reference for what really the creation is, and that's what they were seeking. That's what this group was seeking, understanding even more this reality. So they're going to go even deeper into this and say, you are not part of a material universe. You are part of a thought. You are dancing in a ballroom in which there is no material. You are dancing thoughts. You move your body, your mind, and your spirit in somewhat eccentric patterns. For you have not completely grasped the concept that you are part of the original thought. We would at this time transfer to an instrument known as Don. I am Ra. Funny that, who would know? Don was actually contacted by Ra, or at least attempt to be transferred and talked through Don. So, in any case, they're going again. Very heavy philosophical views of the creation here when they talk about that. First of all, we're not part of a material universe. This is something that we know, obviously, over time with quantum physics in general now in our science, that we are not matter. Matter does not physically exist. It's just energy. And that we are part of a thought. Of course, the thought is what we call the inner self. Truly what the mind is made of. The mind is not made of energy. The mind is not made of, yes, it's manifested in energy, and energy is actually manifested in a physical form, or what we call physical here. But thought is actually something that comes from the void, from what we call the void in Buddhism, is the source. It's the creation, or the creator itself, not the creation, but the creator itself. So we, as a manifested being with the ego interface that I call, we are dancing thoughts. Those thoughts are this is what's being created by the thoughts that are being manifested here. And that we move our body, mind, and spirit in somewhat eccentric patterns. Now, this is pretty cool, because they are saying that we have not completely grasped the concept that we are part of the original thought. Now, remember, there is an evolution in which the universe goes through consciousness awareness, and it goes into the creation to know the self. This is the purpose of us being here, to know ourselves. And that's why they say that we move our body, mind, and spirit in eccentric patterns. For we have not completely grasped that we are part of the original thought. This is our mission, in essence. We are here to realize that we are the creator. And as long as we are not in knowledge of that, we are not in acceptance of who we truly are at core, we're all the creator, then we are moving ourselves in these bizarre patterns for them, which is really just a dance. Again, there's nothing wrong, it's nothing right, it's just us knowing the self. It's almost as a child gets to know the world around it. You know, it's playful, it's not rigid thinking, it's not logical, reasonable, it's playful. And that's how the child knows the environment and gets to know it over time. So same thing here, we're doing the same type of dance, if just to follow the side that we are in a ballroom of dancing thoughts. So pretty cool. Now they're going to go into different parts of different channels. So they say, I am Ra, I am again with this instrument. We are close to initiating a contact, but are having difficulty penetrating a certain mental tension and distraction that is somewhat characteristic of this channel. We will, therefore, describe the type of vibration which is being sent. The instrument will find us entering the energy field at a slight angle towards the back of the top of the head in a narrow but strong area of intensity. We are not able to offer any conditioning due to our own transmitting limitations. Therefore, if the instrument can feel this particular effect, he may then speak our thoughts as they come to him. We will again attempt this contact. I am Ra. So this is just part that I included because it's part of everything, but they're trying to exercise their transmission through different channels, and because they're having issues with the mental tension and distraction that is this characteristic of this type of channeling, they're having issues. So they kind of describe the way that it's felt, and for the instrument or channel to realize that if the thoughts that are coming, how they feel it is basically what they're trying to transmit. And they'll continue and say, this instrument is resisting our contact. However, we assure her that we are satisfied that contact with the one known as Don is not at this time preferable to that instrument. We will therefore move on to the one known as Leonard. Again, we caution the instrument that it is a narrow band communication which is felt as a vibration entering the aura. We will now transfer this contact. I am Ra. So again, this is them saying, well, we just tried on, but it's not preferable. So we're gonna move to someone called Leonard. And again, they caution the instrument that this is a very narrow band vibration communication, which is felt entering the aura. So again, they're just trying to exercise. And this is what's happening. I don't have a full picture of what was happening, how many people were there, but I know there was a large group. And I think this was the first and last session where there were other people present in the channeling of Ra. So they were trying different instruments, and I think now they finalized this by saying, I am Ra. We greet you once more in the love and delight of our infinite creator. We ask that you be patient with us, for we are a difficult channel to receive. However, we may perhaps add some dimensions to your understanding. At this time, we would be glad to attempt to speak to any subject or question which those entities in the room may have potential use in the requesting. So again, this is just filling for the question or the first communication of Ra that I just wanted to put in there. They salute them, everybody again, and they say, okay, at this point we're able to answer some questions, which is the usual format that every other Confederation entity would do. And we're going to get into question 2 shortly. So you're going to see something that shifts in session 2 at the beginning, and that would be, say, the setup of the whole channeling. So that's it. I think we're good for 1.5 at this point, which is the next question that I didn't cover in session 1. And Don is asking, or the questionnaire, not sure if it was Don, but say, could you give me a little more detail about your role with the Egyptians? So Ra says, the identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with a race of your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America, in the so-called lost cities, where their attempts to contribute to the law of one. We are going to encounter, of course, information that we have covered already in past videos, so if you're interested, you can go back and read the title. If it's like South America, I know we covered in, I believe it was session 20-something, so go around that. It's right there in the title, Great Civilization of South America, and the Lost Cities. So we cover that too. Very, very important, very cool. Now, one of the things that I wanted to add here is that the vibration Ra is our identity. Now they know they don't have an identity. Like, they don't call themselves Ra. It's just that they are attached to us by the name Ra because that's what we gave them the name. And it's interesting to know, even more profound, is that because they were called Ra, it's almost like a baby. A baby calls you, you know, dad or mom. You're gonna be dad and mom, you know, until it's they're told otherwise. But you know, in that aspect, we're still calling them Ra. Like, they're not, you know, Ra. They're social memory complex, close to unity. But because we call them that in Egypt, then they go by the name Ra. So I thought it was funny to mention. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact. See, they're already saying like, yeah, we're known by Ra, but we're really a social memory complex. We don't have an identity. We actually don't want an identity to go to 7th density. So, all right, so that's that part. We're gonna cover some material that was expanded a lot more in other videos. So they say, we spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the law of one. However, the priests and peoples of that era quickly distorted our message, robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed, but it's by its very nature. Since it contains all, it cannot abhor any. We talk about this. This is how they attempt first to help the civilization of the Egyptians, and the Egyptians, of course, created the elite, and they said, oh, great, amazing technology, we can use it to subdue other people and become the elite. So here's where the cascade actually started. This is where Ra was bound to us in a way, because they caused this distortion. And they're just saying this. Like I said, it's going to be expanded in other sessions, which you can check in all the series that we have so far. Especially Egypt, we've covered a lot. I don't think we're going to cover that much more in the series. But they go on to say, when we were no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the law of one, we remove ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. And other myths, shall we say, other understandings having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibrational complex, again took over in that particular society complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information, or could we speak further? So, yeah, we know this already at this point, if you have watched the rest of the series, that they kind of withdraw themselves from here because they saw that what they attempt to do was not actually what happened, and the Egyptians kind of messed it up in a way, or distorted it even more. They say, of course, that they had been ourselves, so they were placed in a pedestal because of who they were. They were saying, oh my God, they're gods. And, you know, it's almost like Ra were saying, no, we're not gods. We are just, you know, beings like you. We're trying to teach you something. And you can see this is, you know, and I've said this before, but this is our, still kind of our mentality in our current era, that when we're seeking information, we tend to perceive the teacher as a master, as somebody who is above us, to idolize it, to put it on a pedestal. That is not so. They are teaching you something. They are giving you information, which for you is only as relevant as is important to be. And of course, if you, we kind of confuse also, which is human nature, being grateful for the information that is given, but not to the point to idolize things. And that's why they say the hypocritical position which they had allowed themselves to be placed in. Now, when they talk about other myths and understandings having to do with polarity and the things of your vibrational complex, again, took over in that particular society complex. Yes, Egyptians started distorting the understandings into our own polarity, the way we see things from our perspective, and polarity perceived as positive and negative, and they were distorted that way. So all the subsequent behaviors that came out and belief systems, they were part of this one distortion that they caused. So in essence, they feel responsible for everything that happened in Egypt because they gave them that information and the technology of the pyramids, which is something that we're going to get into furthermore in other videos. But we have discussed some of the pyramids already, and we're going to talk about healing too, which has to do with the pyramids. But those are the things that they also distorted. So, all right, I think this is the next question. We have 1.7, which was actually lost because the questionnaire was not close. And Ra simply responds to whatever the question was, which we can extrapolate a little bit. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This has yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. I suppose the question here had to do with our beingness. As I read it more, because I don't remember it exactly, we're going to get more about what the question was. But in any case, what's important is the information that they're giving. When they talk about the infinity of the universe, maybe it has to do with the creation and how the universe is. I don't know. We're going to get into that once I read the rest, because I just completely forgot what it was. But they're talking about the universe being infinite, right? And one of the things is they say, this has yet to be proven or disproven. I don't think they're talking about their own understanding of if the universe is infinite or not. They may be, but it sounds more like they just don't want to say, oh yes, the universe is infinite, or it's not, because they know that we were struggling at that time with knowing if the universe was infinite or not, if it was expanding or contracting, or if it was going to, heat death and all this stuff was not really solidified at that point. So our own understanding of cosmology in general was kind of limited, and it still is. We still debate that, believe it or not. Well, it's believable. I come from that background. That would be hypocritical of me to say so. But yes, we are still struggling with that as a society in general. We don't know. So I think that's what they were saying. But we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves. That they can say. I think they're slightly saying, like, we cannot say if it's infinite, but yeah, you are infinite. Of course, when we see that the creator itself is infinite and we are the creator, then of course there is no end to ourselves. Maybe what the creation can end up being is something that we don't know yet, but in any case, there is no end to us, and that's what they said there. All right, next part, where they say, that which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define that infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. In an infinite creator, there is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is a simplistic example of unity. Beautiful. So again, I can't really make up the question. Not that it's important, because we're just discussing what Ra said, but it is curious. So in any case, again, what they're saying is that that which is infinite cannot be many, obviously. For many, it's a finite concept. We have a infinite creator, but we have finite concepts here, obviously. For us to differentiate ourselves and to have an experience cannot happen in unity, because in unity, everything has happened, will happen, and all possibilities are there. In the infinity is where everything is contained. So from unity, we have to come into the illusion that we are separated. And here we can start extracting from them the reality or philosophical reality that this is an illusion, this is a dream, this is a I don't like the word simulation. Some people are starting to use it. I think that's more in mind with technology and artificial intelligence and programming and all that stuff, which I don't think is relevant to this. I think there's a lot of limitations there in simulation. So that's just my idea on the whole world being a simulation, not really a simulation in terms of bits and electronics. But in any case, so they're saying that the infinite creator, there's only unity. Like they said, you have seen simple examples of unity. Simple examples of unity is what they say. You have seen the prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. If the sunlight is everything, right? It's pure energy. How is it possible that we have 7 colors coming out from it? Refraction. Well, think about it. We are the creator. However, we are a prism of chakras, of energy centers. So we are an illusion of the one creator. We are a manifestation, a refraction of the creator in that way. So we can see that we are coming from unity, although we are expressed in different colors, if you will, which is consciousness again. And that's our etheric body, and we can get into that in the next video when we talk about healing, which is important to know. But yeah, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about the illusion itself, and how they're trying to put infinity into context here in terms of the illusion of what this is. And I hope that makes sense. So now they go into enunciating what the law of one actually is. Not precisely, but they're saying, in truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance through the mind-body-spirit complex, which you amuse yourself by distorting in various ways at this time. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative to understanding the complete unity of thought which binds all things. Wow, this is so profound. Okay, in truth, there is no right or wrong. We just create that in our minds here as humans. There is no polarity, right? Because in truth, there is no polarity. Polarity is the rule of the game. Without polarity, we cannot experience anything. So they're saying that in truth, there is no polarity either. Because everything will be reconciled at some point in our dance. I love how they say dance. Through the mind-body-spirit complex, which we amuse ourselves to distort in various ways. So, picture, if you will, our dance is from unity to unity, going through the refraction, say, of the creation. And in that refraction, we have the 7 densities of consciousness. So we're going to dance through these. We're only in third right now. We came from first, second, we're in third. Actually, we're in all, but that's a little deeper. Not to get into that right now. But the point is that we're going through that, and at the end, like they say, everything will be reconciled in unity. Everything will be reconciled at the end. So we come from unity to the refraction, going through all of our experiences in the illusion of creation, and then going back to the creator to feed the thoughts, to feed the experiences to ourselves. Remember, I don't want to sound like we have an external creator. It's ourselves. We're doing this for ourselves. We go into our final destination, which is 7th density, to the next octave of understanding, of knowledge. And that's all what the creation is. It's just a beautiful dance that we go through experiences, and we go back to that. So this distortions, and I like how they say that we're amusing ourselves, because that's really what it is. It's a play. This is a game. We forget about it because we're too serious about life, especially in this society. So serious about ourselves too. We take ourselves too serious. This is a game. This is an illusion in which we're coming here to play. So they say that we amuse ourselves, distorting in various. They mean it in the very strict sense of amusing. We are amusing ourselves. And what does a child do? A child is just having fun with the things that are happening around them. It's just interesting. You know, it's experiencing things. It wants to try everything. So if you have a child, you know what I'm talking about. They just cannot be stopped at a certain point because they see the world as a playful environment, as a playground. So they're reminding us of that. And this distortion is not in any case necessary. Of course, it's not necessary to be here, but we choose because this is such a fun place to be. We within the veil, which is a concept that we still have to elaborate in the future, within the veil we forget everything and we think we are separate, and at this point we believe ourselves so separate from everything that we have created this funny society, this interesting society, and cultural behaviors. So this is all amusing in the end, because once we die, and not even die, and once you get into the real sense of feeling this creation, you know that this is all, it's illusory. So I love how they're putting all of this stuff, and this is just from the first session. This is all information that is there, compact. I feel sometimes that they didn't know if this was going to go into very detailed sessions like they did, so they just downloaded all this information on them, and I don't know, to me this is amusing as well. All right, we still have so much to cover. It's gonna be a long video. So Ra continues, or ends this question, which we still don't know what they asked. They said, you are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love light, light love. You are. This is the law of one. May we enunciate this law in more detail. Yes, please. We would love that. So, once again, what they're saying is Tibetan Buddhism, when they know that we are everything, when you realize through the understanding of who you truly are, not so much the concepts that come out of the philosophy of Buddhism, but just the acceptance of self, the knowing of the self, is where you see that what they're saying here is the same thing. You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. We are not similar. We are not alike in anything. We are the same. We are the same self. Of course, in our illusion projection here, we see things as different, and that is the playful part. That is the game, to see things separate. Every piece that exists in this creation, this little pyramid, this coconut ring, everything is just made of the same, not the same matter, of course. We're talking about the same consciousness, the same force, the Tao that is explained in Chinese Taoism. That is the same force, the same air, the same energy. There is no word for it, but it's just that ether that is creating everything. That's what we are. That's what we truly are. There is no identity there. There's just oneness within everything. And we are love light, light love. That's another part. We are unity. We're infinity. We're all this. We are. This is another phrase or word. You are. I am. This is what Yahweh said, which is a long story, and we've talked about Yahweh already several times, but I can expand this more if needed, but I'm not going to go derail myself here. We still have a couple more questions that I want to cover. So, yeah, this is basically what they're saying, and I'm going to cut it at that. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. But yes, this is the law of one. Can we see it in more detail? Of course, we will see it in more details. So, the next question says, another question, is it possible to create any acceleration of understanding in other entities, or are all efforts by the individual on himself accelerating his understanding? In other words, if an individual tries to act as a catalyst in general to increase the awareness of planetary consciousness, is he doing nothing but acting upon himself, or is it possible something? Or is it possible to something? Not sure. So this question, this is our notion of service to others. And before we get into the answer, I want to read that last part again, because they say, in other words, if an individual tries to act as a catalyst in general to increase the awareness of planetary consciousness, is he doing nothing but acting upon himself, or is it possible that he's also acting on others? Like the influence that when we try to act as a catalyst for other people, are we acting upon ourselves, or are we also helping the other? You know, the answer is going to be cool, because Ra says, and we'll go to that straight before me going further into the question. So Ra says, we shall answer your question in two parts, both of which are important equally. Firstly, you must understand that this distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness raising efforts of the distortions which you project as a personality and the distortion which you project as an other personality. See, coming from what we were talking about before, which were all the same, the Tao, which is really that great Chinese concept of what it is that makes the creation, and that we are all the Tao. Everything is the Tao. They're saying that there is no separation from how they see things. They just see one thing, one organism coming out. So a personality, as we see it, they cannot see it. That's an illusory concept for us. And of course, the distortion of another personality, they don't see that, because there is no separating the conscious raising efforts. If they say this all the time, if it helps one, it helps all. And this is one concept that I hammer a lot when I talk about the awakening that we're having right now, the raising consciousness. You don't raise the consciousness on other people, you raise it on yourself. You may see that as an illusion from your own actions, when you speak, when you express yourself, when you share your things. You may see that as a reflection, but it's not so. What is happening is that by you raising your consciousness, by you expanding your consciousness, because we share the same consciousness, everything expands. And so others are benefited by that. And I always say that especially the people that are so encapsulated in the idea that we need to raise the consciousness of the planet. Well, raise your own consciousness. That's all that's needed. Nothing else. What you can do is share what you do. Share who you are without limitations. Just being yourself. Just be yourself. And you will see that naturally, without any effort. Which is another thing that the Chinese call Wu Wei. No effort. Don't try to do anything. Just be. Just do it. Right. You want to do something? Just do it. Just think about it. Do it. Just be. So in the same way, they're saying that, there's just one consciousness, and by you raising it, that's it. Let's go to the next part before I keep going. This is exciting for me. All right. So Ra says, thus to learn is the same as to teach, unless you are not teaching what you are learning. In which case you have done they little or no good. This understanding should be pondered by your mind-body-spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experiences at this nexus. Boom. Again, this is what I'm saying. To learn is the same as to teach. You cannot learn if you're not teaching, or you cannot teach if you're not learning. Learn teaching, teach learning. Love light, light love. The same thing. So even what they say, in which case you have done, if you are not teaching what you're learning, then in which case you have done they, because us, same, we're all the same, little or no good. This understanding should be pondering by your mind-body-spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experiences at this nexus. Yes, we have the distortion of thinking ourselves separate, and that we're teaching something or we're learning something, but in essence, we're not, unless it's happening both ways. So, hope that makes sense. I think within the context that we're talking about, it should. So Ra goes on to say, to turn to the second part of our response, may we state our understanding, limited though as it is. Group individuated consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind-body-spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of the mind-body-spirit complex individual or group. Thus, we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. So pretty quick here. To turn to the second part, okay, yes, group individual consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind, body, spirit complexes. So us sharing, simply sharing who we are, is how this happens. This is how we raise our consciousness. I'm gonna make a very crude analogy for this, but hopefully it makes sense. If we were not to be engulfed in this many taboos of society and our limitations and fears and so on that permeates our consciousness, we would be acting as we would like. No restrictions, no limitations, which is something that those in society right now, in control of society, fear. They don't want, think about it, those who control society do not want free expression. If we were to have free expression, I'm not talking about rebellious attitudes and anarchy and so on. I'm talking about the free expression of the soul. If we were to express ourselves naturally, we would be sharing that with everybody. By us expressing that, we are teaching and people are learning from us, which at the same time, we are learning from their reactions by us expressing ourselves. This is the natural way of humans, or consciousness in general, as they say, sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind, body, spirit complexes. So those things, group individuated consciousness, right, is that of sharing. So group individuated consciousness, those little individuated parts of consciousness are communicating to each other and are knowing themselves more and more. We are part of the consciousness of the planet, and the planet is knowing itself more and more by our own sharing, or lack of sharing in that way. We have a sick planet because of that. But that's way beyond the scope of this. So let's go to the rest of this. We're going to turn this almost into an hour. Interesting. So Ross says, we are not available to many of your peoples, for this is not an easily understood way of communication or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach. Each of those in this group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending, this instrument, into the channels of the mind-body-spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all. Once again, we're talking about the same idea. To serve one is to serve all. To try, in fact, to serve one is more than enough. To illuminate one is more than enough to illuminate the rest of the planet, the rest of humanity. So, a couple of things to take out from here. They're saying that they're not available to many of our peoples, at least at that time, for this is not an easily understood way of communication or type of philosophy, especially in the way that in the 80s, oh God, the 80s, it was such a picturesque type of decade in many ways. So because of that, it's not an easily understood, and it's not easily available for everybody. So however, our being is helpful. So they're trying here to say that their own expression here or there, trying to teach something, is a really good example of the necessity to teach and the near hopelessness of attempting it. So it shows that it's almost not impossible, but it's really hard to convey this message, and it's a good example of that. Everybody is attempting to digest and diversify the information which they're sending. Everybody's going to interpret it in a different way, and that is the real, I guess, hopelessness of them trying to transmit a concept that is going to be interpreted in many ways, because that's just the nature of our refractory creation or beingness in this density. So to me, that's what it means. It makes total sense, but it is an attempt. I mean, it needs to be taught. That's just how it works. You can see this actually in a very down-to-earth example. When you learn a concept, especially when you're learning this kind of stuff, or awakening in so many aspects of our reality in this society, that you try to convey the message to somebody else, and it's really, really hard to teach it. It's really, really hard to make them understand. They seem to have a limitation, or not a limitation, say, like a cap, but just a limitation at the time of their understanding. It's like you need to expand that consciousness little by little. So sometimes those concepts cannot be fully integrated. So it has to be, fed bit by bit. And of course, raw is not an easy way, because they're just downloading a lot of information, as you can see. I'll get into one of the longest videos that I've ever done in the Law of One series, and it's very rewarding. So very grateful to be doing this. So it's another example of that. All right, next part is Ra saying, therefore, we offer the question back to you to state that indeed it is the only activity worth doing, to learn, teach, or teach, learn. There is nothing else which is of aid in demonstrating the original thought, except your very being, and the distortions that come from the unexplained, inarticulate, or mystery-clad being are many. Thus, the attempt to discern and weave your way through as many group mind-body-spirit distortions as possible among your peoples in the course of your teaching is a very good effort to make. We can speak no more valiantly of your desire to serve. So we have a little bit more in this video, or in this session 1. This is actually like a remake of session 1 at this point. But yeah, again, they're emphasizing the need for us to teach and learn. Now, we do have the distortions that when we know something, we must teach it in the way that we know it, in the way we understand it. At least, I'm pointing fingers at anybody, but that's the tendency that we have in humanity. To my understanding, to my belief, and my philosophy, you never teach something explicitly. You always teach something in the ways that you express it, in the way that you believe that reality is. And you teach it in the attempt to also learn, as a reflection of what other people may say. I mean, a very personal example has been this interpretation of the raw material that I'm doing. I have learned more than I could possibly just read the raw material 100 times, and I could not learn more or the same equal by not doing this. Doing this for me, showing it to people, to the few people that have had caught their attention, that I have caught their attention with this, I have learned so much that I could not have learned from the material itself. And this is because of the nature of synergy that we have with other people that kind of resonate with what we do. And this is the nature of teaching. Teaching is just showing what you believe, it's true. And you learn from that. So they are reinforcing that to be the guiding factor there for us to teach and learn. And it's really, really important for us to do this. And we know this now. All right, so I believe this is the last part of this. And we will go, actually, no, this is a preview that I'm going to just leave there. If you want to read it, you can pause it when I went further into the slideshow, and that's going to be in the next video. I actually wanted to cover this, but it's already almost an hour, and that's a limit already. But this is how they present themselves in session 2, which again, I'm going to cover more precisely and with more information, or my thoughts in general, in the next video, where I have more information from session 2, 3, and 4, especially healing. Healing is going to be the primal part of the next video. But yeah, that's it. This part is how they present themselves in session 2, and how they actually set up the whole channeling format, how they presented it in very different than how they did it in the past. So again, this is the session 1. I wanted to cover all this stuff here, but there's a lot to cover in session 1 apparently, and I didn't think I was going to get this long, but information's there. So that's it. In the next video, I'm going to cover, like I said, the rest of the questions that I didn't cover in my previous videos at the beginning when I started to make this series, that I never thought it was going to be, up to this point the way I'm doing it, but I'm really glad to be doing it. I want to leave just one conclusion, if we can take something out of this, even though I didn't plan on making a conclusion for this video. I just wanted to read the questions and just kind of philosophize on the information that was given in session 1, is that we can see that the couple of things that I got from rereading all this stuff is that, first of all, our understanding of the self is very, very important. I've been seeing a lot in the community, the spiritual community, that there is I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but there is an emphasis to learn so much about the spiritual aspects and the etheric aspects of the energy bodies and the negative beings and the polarities and all this stuff without understanding the self. Not that I would claim that I know myself yet, but the studying of the self as they introduce themselves here. If you see the raw material, they're trying to emphasize a lot, because this is the law of one. The law of one is knowing who you are. By knowing who you are, you can see the creation. If you don't know who you are, then the creation keeps coming at you as a separate part of you. So in unity, by you knowing your source, you can begin to see and explore everything else with a different angle. And this is where I see that a lot of people in the spiritual communities have been entertaining themselves. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I mean, like we said, we're dancing thoughts here. This is amusing in a way how it's happening. I am an amusing individual here trying to make sense of a dense information. I'm just having fun with it. But I believe when I say this is with a reason. I see a lot of conflict, internal conflict and external conflict too, which is absurd in the spiritual community. But there is conflict nonetheless, because we are not seeking the self. Once we seek the self and we know it, then we can start seeing everything from a much more harmonious place, which is not in conflict with anything else. Negative beings. It's another fear that's been imposed on us. The negative beings and all the Draco reptilians and so on. We talk about this stuff here because they're asked. The questions are asked about negative beings, and Ra would say, yeah, sure, you want to know that? Here you go. That's what you want to know. In the same way, we don't need Ra to tell us anything. It's how we seek information. And that information is there for us. But how that relates to our harmonious being is how we should see it. So it's very different to tell a child, demons exist, as opposed to telling the child, listen, there is you, learn to know you, who is everything. You are the demons. How about that? When you think about demons, realize that it's you. You are creating them from the very own core of your nature. It's a very different thing. You're not denying the demons, you're not denying the negative beings, but you are allowing yourself to see that you are creating them, that you are perpetuating them with your behaviors and attitudes, and it makes you explore even yourself even more. So if anything we can do in this third density is knowing the self, and knowing the self fully is what I would emphasize as the prime teachings or learnings from this one session that I cover right now. And the rest, just be playful, enjoy life, enjoy things, and enjoy everything else that comes your way because you planned it. All right, that's it. That's all I got, I think. I would cover more in session 2, but it's not going to be as much philosophical as it was this one. As you can see, I love philosophizing about anything that comes in ways that we can expand more. So that's it. We're going to leave it at this session. It's not session, well, yeah, session 2, 3, and 4 will be covered in the questions that I didn't cover in the next video, which again is going to be a lot about healing. Thank you so much. If you watched this almost full hour, I am really appreciative of your time, and I do this with all my love and appreciation for this beautiful material and the people like you who are watching it. So I'll see you in the next video.